Brexit and the Ghosts of Christmas Past, authored by Finian Cunningham via the Strategic Culture Foundation. Tyler Durden on Zero Hedge has this. Given the season, it seems appropriate to cast the Brexit saga in a Dickens light. A Christmas Carol, published 1843, was perhaps Charles Dickens' most celebrated novel, featuring a miserly central character, Ebenezer Scrooge, who was haunted by ghosts from the past. The Brexit process has certainly plenty of recriminations and miserliness to go around, as well as having the theme of past events being bound up in present imbroglio. British Premier Prime Minister Theresa May, with her angular facial features, stern matron-like persona, resonates like Dickens' character. Her fumbling over Britain's exit from the European Union is a mixture of comedy, treachery, and tragedy. May went to Brussels last week with cap in hand to beg for last-minute concessions from EU leaders, only to be told politely to shut up and get on with it. There would be no renegotiation of the withdrawal plan, which she agreed to only last month. May now has an unenviable task of trying to get her Brexit roadmap passed by British parliamentarians. She cancelled tabling a vote last week, fearing that it would be resoundingly rejected by lawmakers. And with the Christmas parliamentary recess looming, it looks like May will have to wait until mid-January before finally letting Parliament have a say. If rejected, which looks likely, then Britain could face a no-deal crash out of the EU on the deadline for divorce set March 29. But such is the alarm among the public, politicians, and media about a hard Brexit and the dire economic repercussion of that, there may be a dramatic U-turn in store, in which a second national referendum is called on whether Britain should leave the EU or not. In short, Brexit may not happen after all. This week, however, Prime Minister May categorically ruled out calls for a second referendum, saying that it could cause irreparable damage to the integrity of our politics, she said. It would break the public faith in British democracy. In the Brexit referendum held June 2016, a total of 17.4 million people, that's 52% of the electorate, cast their votes for Britain to leave the European bloc. The Remain vote was 16.1 million, or 48%. Thus, if a second referendum were held and the vote was reversed, then the Brexit divorce mess might be averted, but the damage to Britain's image of democracy will be shattered. It could even trigger civil unrest and sow deeper, more bitter divisions that have already been fractured the so-called United Kingdom. So Britain is caught in a fiendish dilemma. There seems to be no good options available. If it crashes out of the EU, that will cause uproar in half of the population. If it aborts Brexit and returns to the European fold with tail between legs, that will cause similar uproar in the other half of the population. Back to our Dickens seasonal theme, what is striking in this conundrum is how much the predicament is doomed by ghosts from the past, which are paralyzing forward movement. First of these ghosts is the 2008 global financial crisis, the mishandling of which by the British government and EU executives was a major factor in why the Brexit vote manifested. Since the global crash has been the mass of working people who have been made to pay for the failure in financial capitalism, relentless policies of economic austerity, instead of punitive reparations imposing on big banks, have alienated ordinary citizens in Britain and across the EU towards the establishment. It seems particularly acute in Britain because successive conservative governments there have pursued such stringent austerity economic policies. So when the Brexit referendum was held in 2016, the political establishment both in London and Brussels were primed for a gigantic public rebuke, and that came in the form of a resounding leave vote. An anti-immigrant sentiment, a desire for control over our borders, was also a factor in the Brexit vote. But again, that factor was a direct result of policy. The illegal wars that Britain and other European NATO members followed the United States in waging from Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, and covertly in Syria, all fed into a phenomenal migration challenge across Europe. In Britain, Labour and Conservative governments alike were all complicit in these criminally military escapades of regime change. but it was the Tory government of former Prime Minister David Cameron that bears much responsibility from taking the lead role in the NATO war to overthrow Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi in 2011, which opened up a mass migration route to Europe. And it was Cameron who assented to holding the Brexit referendum for his own selfish political reasons. The Brexit was partly a result of Cameron's warmongering in Libya and other illegal British wars elsewhere. On the rise of anti-immigrant sentiment in Britain, which partly drove the vote to leave the EU, the present Prime Minister is also culpable. She's to blame. Before taking over as Premier from Cameron in 2016, he quit over the Brexit result. Theresa May served as the Home Secretary and that's Interior Minister, and during her 6-year post as hawkish Interior Minister, British government policy became sharply hostile towards illegal migrants. It was May who launched public campaigns warning undocumented migrants to go home or face jail. Rather than being held to account for criminal wars in Central Asia, Middle East, North Africa, and the cause of refugee flows, British government opted instead to criminalize undocumented migrants, and that inevitably fed into British public sentiment, either fearing or loathing a perception of foreigners flooding the country. Another ghost from the past was the rise of the anti-EU, anti-immigrant United Kingdom Independent Party UKIP. UKIP has since fizzled into near oblivion, but on one stage the Eurosceptic party threatened to drag large votes from the main right-wing party, the Conservatives. In a desperate move to fend off the UKIP, former Conservative Premier David Cameron made a manifesto promise in 2015 national elections that, if he was elected, his government would hold a referendum on EU membership. Cameron thus used the Brexit issue as a way to keep his party in power and to push back the electoral threat of UKIP. A year later, the Brexit vote then threw British politics into turmoil that is still ongoing. And finally, our remaining ghost from the past goes back a little further in history. It's the legacy of British imperialist misdeeds in Ireland. Britain's violation of Ireland's sovereignty and its criminal partitioning of it in 1921 of the neighbouring island nation is a predominant spanner in the Brexit wheels. The London government cannot exit Europe easily. Indeed, it will be mission impossible because of the historic problem concerning a British-imposed border in Ireland. The majority of the people on the island of Ireland, both in the southern state, the Republic of Ireland, and in British jurisdiction of Northern Ireland, do not want to the return of a hard border. Neither does the European Union want to create such a frontier which could cause immense disruption in the entire Irish economy. But if there is no border, then part of the United Kingdom, that's Northern Ireland, will in effect remain integrated with the EU in terms of customs and trade, and for the Brexiters in Britain, that is anathema. The insoluble problem of the Irish border is why the Brexit process will forever be strapped with interminable wrangling and why the current British political crisis will continue indefinitely. The miserly past of British politicians has come back to haunt the present cohort into paralysis over Brexit. Unlike for the repentant, mean Scrooge character in Dickens' novel, there seems to be no redemption in the offering for the incumbent British political class. If you'd like to join me on my Patreon account, you will hear content not covered by mainstream media. These riveting stories will be based on my research, and I will state my opinions and give my personal insight on diverse and controversial subjects and world events not covered by mainstream media, and not supported by YouTube guidelines. So whatever I have on my Patreon, most of those will not be on my YouTube channel. Please consider becoming a member today. More of the most significant and important videos will be on my Patreon channel. Your support helps me to continue my research and keeps this YouTube channel alive. And we depend on your support, your generous charity, because We help economically challenged families here in Athens, Greece, in Kapota, and we also help the young generation with university tuition and the community around our church. Thank you.